Welcome on back to another comic book flashback. I'm Marvel Across 316, and you're looking at The Amazing Spider-Man, issue number 43. This issue came out in December of 1966, and as we look on the cover today, we have Spider-Man going one-on-one with the Rhino. Rhino makes his second appearance in this issue, and so we have a fantastic story, a lot of action to look forward to in this issue, so don't go away, because we're going to look at a great story today. Today's title is Rhino on the Rampage, and that's exactly what happens in this issue. I mean, Rhino is an absolute monster in this issue, and so go ahead, like this video, subscribe if you have not, and let's go ahead and get started. As always, this is brought to you by Stan Lee, the writer, John Romita doing the art, Artie Simek doing the lettering page. And so we see right here, right off the bat, what Rhino is up to. The Rhino has broken loose from his captivity. Remember from last issue how he had pretty much reawoken from unconsciousness and now he's awake. Bullets can't stop him. Nothing can stop him. I don't know when police will ever learn that their guns will not work on the Rhino. They just never do. They just keep shooting at him and it never works. But the Rhino breaks loose. The Rhino is on the loose, and one thing is on the Rhino's mind, and that is to get revenge on Spider-Man. And so that's exactly where the Rhino is going next. He's going to cause mayhem in New York City to get Spider-Man's attention. We also learned from this issue that Ned Leeds finally bought an engagement ring for Betty Brant. And so now they are finally engaged. And now we see J. Jonah Jameson here. He butts in and he's like, "What are y'all doing?" And I'm standing around. We got the Rhino on the loose. We need a story to print out. And so he sends out Frederick Foswell to go get the story, to write it down. So Frederick Foswell is going to be at the scene watching the entire thing happen. And so we got some great things going on. But also we left off from last issue with the first full appearance of Mary Jane Watson. And so we have Aunt May, we have Peter Parker, and we have Mary Jane's aunt, and that's Anna Watson. They're all just eating a dinner right now, and we could see that Peter Parker is just falling in love. He's like puppy love right here. He just can't imagine why he's been avoiding meeting Mary Jane this entire time, because she is something else. And so we see Aunt May and Anna Watson here. They're both giggling. They're like, man, they look like they're hitting it off pretty well. And it is going really well between Peter Parker and Mary Jane. They're both having good dialogue with each other. They seem to both be getting along. I mean, Mary Jane's dancing to the music. She seems totally different from the other girls that Peter Parker has met in the past. But we see right here that the song is interrupted here with the news bulletin with the Rhino on the loose. So now Peter Parker's like, great, we have Mary Jane over here and I'm wanting to spend time with her, but now I need to change to Spider-Man and I got to figure out a way to get away from Mary Jane. Mary Jane brings up the fact that, hey, wouldn't it be a good idea if we go see the Rhino in action? And so Peter's like, that's a good idea. So Peter tells Aunt May that, hey, we're going to go off. She wants to ride on my motorcycle. So we see Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson on their way to downtown New York to get some photos of the Rhino here, as well as Spider-Man's going to make an appearance to stop the Rhino. So now he has to figure out how he's going to change to Spider-Man and make up an excuse. We also see a guest appearance of Matt Murdock and Foggy Nelson here. And Matt Murdock is busy with his other stuff, but we know that Matt Murdock is Daredevil. He would love to get an opportune time to change to Daredevil, but that's not going to happen here. Foggy Nelson is pretty upset because he was put in charge of being the attorney for the Rhino, but now we see that the Rhino's on the loose, and we see a little bit of the origin story behind the Rhino. So Rhino is thinking about Spider-Man. He wants to beat up Spider-Man, but we see right here how he became the Rhino. So we have the Rhino here. We don't know his full name, but he approaches these group of scientists. He is pretty much into crime. He's always been doing big things in crime, and he's not the smartest guy. He's not the sharpest knife in the drawer. And they use that to their advantage. He's like, whatever, as long as you can turn me to whatever you want me to, as long as I can make some money, I'm fine. So that's what they do. They spend months experimenting on the Rhino here. And so they finally graft this artificial skin on him, and they make him into a lifelike rhinoceros. But because of doing that, the Rhino gains super strength, but it also allows him to become smart as well. And so then he turns on the scientist, breaks loose, destroys the lab. He leaves these guys helpless. He doesn't kill them, but now that's how the Rhino came to being, basically. They experimented on this guy and turned him into a human rhinoceros, and he's pretty indestructible. And now he's wanting to get revenge on Spider-Man. So now we see that Peter Parker and Mary Jane have both arrived. So Peter Parker says, look, I'm going to go take some photos for the Daily Bugle. You stay here with my bike. I'll be right back. So he changes to Spider-Man. And here we go. We're going to have Spider-Man and the Rhino going one-on-one for another battle here. So he sets up his automatic camera here to take some pictures. And off we go. We have Spider-Man and the Rhino going one-on-one right here. And once again, great action scenes right here by John Romita. I mean, this is awesome stuff. I'll just let you look at some of this stuff. He tries to use the same tactic as he did last time to ram the Rhino's head into that concrete pavement. This time it's not working. The Rhino is up to date with how to defeat Spider-Man. He's more dangerous than ever this time. I mean, he is absolutely just on a rampage here. And so now the Rhino is going to lure Spider-Man here into the ongoing crowd, so this is not good. And we have Mary Jane's like, man, isn't he the dreamiest ever? He's talking about Spider-Man here. So we see once again Spider-Man is going for the same tactic, trying to ram the Rhino's head into the concrete. That's not working. He runs into this locomotive filled with these steel girders, and it causes just a bunch of mayhem here. So now the Rhino's buried underneath all of these steel girders, but he gets away in time. He thinks that he's defeated Spider-Man. We have this police officer pull Spider-Man out of the way in time, so the police officer saves Spider-Man. And we have Frederick Foswell getting all the updates here. He thinks it's just wonderful. JJ's going to eat it up here because Spider-Man was saved by a cop. And Spider-Man has a newfound respect for cops, as he should be, because the cops are really the heroes in society, as well as firefighters. And so Spider-Man collects his his camera here. It about falls off the webbing here. And he also comes across a piece of Rhino's skin, piece of Rhino's artificial costume here. So he's going to use that to use later on in this issue. He comes back to Mary Jane here. He tells her the excuse that, hey, I didn't miss all the action. I was actually up in a building at a second-story window taking the pictures. And she goes along with it. She doesn't really suspect anything. She tells him, hey, can you get me back to my apartment? He says, sure, but I will only do it if you'll go out with me tomorrow night. So there we go. We got a date right off the bat with Peter Parker and Mary Jane. It's already set up here. So he takes her back to her apartment. JJ's just eating it up right now at the Daily Bugle. He's like, man, this is great, even if we don't have photos. But Peter Parker's like, oh, I got photos for you. And so JJ's like, oh, man, this is just awesome stuff. So he calls the room and says, hey, forget about that one edition. We're printing out an extra edition. We got news photos for you. We're going to make this one of the best newspapers of all time. So Peter Parker collects his cash here. That will definitely help him as he's in debt with purchasing this motorcycle. We also see that now the Rhino is after John Jameson. Remember from last issue how he's after John Jameson, but now John Jameson seems to be back to normal. He's not the superpowered menace that he was from last issue. We also see Spider-Man go to Dr. Kirk Connors. Remember, he was the lizard. And so Spider-Man goes to him. He shows him how he has a piece of the Rhino's hide here, and he wants to do some experimenting here on how to defeat the Rhino once and for all. We see Spider-Man call Aunt May here to tell her that he's busy. He won't be home tonight. So we see that Kirk Connors here, he actually suggests that he could turn into the lizard and help Spider-Man, but Spider-Man's like, no, we're not going to take that chance, because if you do, you'll lose your human part of you and you'll become a mindless lizard. And so that's not a good idea. So we're not going to see the lizard in this issue, but it would have been pretty cool team up if that happened. So now we see Spider-Man goes to John Jameson's room here, and once again, here we go with the Rhino. He's after John Jameson. Nothing can stop him, but Spider-Man's going to fight the Rhino once and for all here. Spider-Man leaps up on the Rhino, knocks him out, and he uses specialized webbing, and it sticks to the Rhino's skin here, to the Rhino's costume. The Rhino breaks the webbing here, but it actually still sticks on the Rhino, and it's doing that for a reason, as you'll soon find out. Spider-Man fights Rhino, but then he realizes here that this artificial webbing, this specialized webbing that Spider-Man went to Kirk Connors for, is actually a specialized webbing to burn the costume off of the Rhino. So the costume of the Rhino melts off here, and now the Rhino is helpless as he's in his human form. Spider-Man knocks out the Rhino, and the police gather and collects the Rhino here. So now the Rhino is officially defeated here. And so that's pretty much the end of this story. We also see that Flash Thompson, Gwen Stacy, and Harry Osborn are out and about, and Peter Parker comes across them. And we learn from this issue that Flash Thompson has been drafted into the Army. As we see from, remember, in 1966, we have the beginning of the Vietnam War. So now we have Flash Thompson here, as he's going to be drafted into the Vietnam War here. And he's asking Peter Parker here if he's been drafted yet, and Peter Parker said no. And so we finally end the issue here. We have Peter Parker returning back to his house, and we see Aunt May feeling ill. He comes to find out that she has an empty bottle, and she's run out of money. And he's like, dang it. He said, once again, I'm always fighting crime and stuff, and I'm never really thinking about Aunt May. So he calls Mary Jane, and he calls off the date for the next night, and she says, okay, that's fine. And he's like, man, she couldn't care less. Well, we know that Mary Jane is an outgoing girl, so she probably has other guys she may be seeing, or she might be busy doing drama lessons, as we learned from this issue that she's big into drama. She wants to be an actress. So there's a lot of stuff going on in this issue. But next time we're going to see the Lizard, the reappearance of the Lizard. He's going to fight Spider-Man once again. We haven't seen the Lizard since issue number 6. So don't go away, folks, as we look at Amazing Spider-Man issue number 44. Until then, keep reading comics.